Welcome everybody to the SharePoint Dev Weekly. This is episodes.
Take two.
This is not the first time.
Take two.
Take two. Episode 18. So this time, me and Waldek, and we have a visitor, and we actually didn't want to make this right. So I was suggesting that we wanted to have a visitor because we've been mispronouncing his name like
since forever.
Since forever. So, and it's not Yayo, it's not Ayo, which was one of the suggestions.
It's not Joe.
It's not Joe either, and I do apologize. I'm a Finn, so I cannot pronounce anything. So, but let's do the intros. Who are you, and why are you in the call?
Hello, my name is João Ferreira. I'm from Portugal. I'm a SharePoint team lead at BindTuning, and I'm also the owner of the Hands-on SharePoint blog that leads you to all the mispronunciation of my name on these calls.
Yes. Can you repeat that one more time? So just trying to get it right.
Yeah, it's João.
João.
Really close.
Yeah, I need to remember this. João. Okay.
You can always watch the recording.
Oh, that's true. That is
so
true.
That's actually a good one. Now, every single time from now on that we will have something from you and we're going to share that, it will be like pasted a piece of audio with you saying your own name.
We might need to do that. Yes.
Because this is a post from João.
Really good.
Excellent. We're learning.
Cool. So you're from BindTuning. So what does the BindTuning actually do, and what do you do for a living?
So BindTuning, it's a framework to extend SharePoint. We take care of SharePoint branding. We have a gallery of web parts. We have a provisioning engine that was based on the PNP provisioning engine. And we package everything together to help you to start with SharePoint, to build your customized intranets. And that's our main goal. It's to make life easier inside of SharePoint when you are starting something from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. And so basically with the packaging of reusable components, which are your company is providing, and making it as easy as possible to provision, right? Makes a lot of sense. Now, how about you? What's your background for SharePoint and SharePoint Dev?
So I started working with SharePoint 6 years ago. I did a lot of development on SharePoint 2013, SharePoint Online, but in the last 2 years, I was moved more to the management side. And now I'm coding just for the blog and when it's necessarily needed for the customers.
Yeah, but as a technical lead, you still need to understand what's possible, right? So you need to kind of understand the basics and then, let's say, share the tasks for your actual team. So making sure that they do the right stuff. So
I'm always the one testing everything that it's being released.
Yep. Absolutely makes sense. That sounds like my job quite a
Yeah. So in other words, you don't code, you only do R&D, and then you test everything that's going on. Well, yeah. Sums up a lot.
Sure. So if there's any bugs, any bugs on the dev platform, that's on me.
Yeah, and it seems like a trend, like the SP Dev Weekly is being like more and more attendance of non-devs.
That is a fair point. You're still insulted on last week's, right?
No. Yes, I hate you for that. No.
Okay, cool. So just making sure that we don't actually spend too much time again on the recording.
What's wrong with that?
Let's start with that's a fair point. So let's start with a circle around the table. So what have you done during the last week related on SharePoint Dev or dev-oriented stuff, even though you haven't actually done
kind of dev.
Yes.
So the other day I saw a dev doing work.
Wow. Where?
Oh yeah, so we had a call. Yes. Doing work.
Wow.
Yeah, that is as close as I get to Dev Notice now.
And that was a remote call, right? You were not
of course.
present on exactly.
Of course.
Okay. So let's start with you, Waldek, and then we circle around and make sure that everybody has the time to explain what has happened within the last week, or if you run into any interesting discussion points with anybody related on SharePoint Dev.
Well, so one discussion. So there are two things. One was that we had new release of the CLI, the Office 365 CLI, with it took us a while, but we are finally getting there. We have now partial support for the site collection app catalogs for app commands.
Yeah.
So that is now available in beta. And then we spotted quite a few. We spotted a few bugs, and they're already fixed and addressed. So that is also good too. Like the more users there is, like people run into scenarios or tend to use things in different way that we initially planned. It's like, yeah, well, we didn't really taken that into account, so we fixed that too.
Yeah.
Somebody brought an interesting argument that he had a number of files to upload, and initially he intended to do it with PowerShell, but then he noticed that the CPU usage would go so high that it wasn't workable for them, and then he chose CLI instead, and that just worked. So it seemed like kind of interesting angle, like CLI as the way to get less CPU usage when communicating with the APIs comparing to PowerShell. Like that was really odd. Like I would never expect that to be the case, but apparently for him, for that particular scenario of uploading files to SharePoint, that was the case.
Yep. It bears the question on why would that be the case. So what's causing that? So, there was no investigation.
No. So I can imagine, the only thing that I can imagine is that, like in PowerShell, when you work with the API, what you get are actual objects, right? Because you're using with CSOM with the API. So in memory, you hold the whole object. Whereas in CLI, it's just a REST call based on file and the bytes that are on the disk. There is no abstraction around because like Bash doesn't do that.
True.
So maybe that is like, so there's at some point somewhere like inefficient way of dealing with memory or something around that. So maybe that was the reason.
Yeah, makes sense. And the CLI doesn't use any additional frameworks or platform frameworks underneath, so it doesn't load anything.
Exactly.
It's an HTTP call and that's it. So that's
exactly. So maybe that was what helped him to get some efficiency. And then another thing that we got into discussion about is like there's the thing called NPX, and I guess that we have an article, we have a link to that in the show. But then to keep things short, like is NPX alternative to doing stuff in Docker or in a VM or not? So that was kind of interesting going back and forth. Like, would you do that? Would you not? There are some issues with Docker and SPFX v1.7.
Yep.
And there's kind of still unclear where you guys at Microsoft are with regards to supporting SPFX in Docker, because there's no like official things like, yes, we encourage that, or no, we don't, because there are some issues, and you're like, yeah, but we don't know if we want to spend time on that because we're not sure if we're supporting that. So it's like in between, and then we try to do our best to iron things out.
Sure. I think it's definitely supported. I don't think we have any rules which would define that it's not technically supported. Now, it is an open source kind of a industry platform, so there might be certain things which we haven't considered. Have we tested that in our platform? No, we haven't, because our development cycles are slightly different. So our engineers are not using Docker. So will it work with Docker without any problems? Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, if you need it, well, it doesn't. If you need if you need any help with setting that up, I'd be happy to help.
Yeah. We'll need to circle this around. This has been, to be fair with Waldek, and Waldek knows this, but this is mainly for discussion of the audience as well. We've been having this endless discussion about getting Docker documented since 1.5 years. So
yeah,
it's a pretty long-lasting task in the endless list of tasks. So, and it's always deprioritized on top of or below something else. So,
yeah.
Hey,
oh well.
So
it is what it is, right? Yeah.
We'll get there.
Now,
yes.
Our guest.
Okay, so I actually worked a little last week with PNP provisioning. We found a couple issues when trying to install a lot of solutions at the same time.
Yeah.
And we had to manage to catch all the errors and to retry it later to avoid throttling and all that stuff. So we spent part of the week trying to get over it. And I also start playing a little bit with Graph to prepare everything that we will be releasing for the next year.
Cool.
What about the PMP issue, the provision? You were able to work around that. I've noticed that you've been submitting a few items here and there on the issue list, but we're slightly behind of catching up on everything.
It's basically just a matter of retrying because most of the times it works, but every once in a while there's a solution that it's not activated, that it's not deployed, and there's no apparent reason for that to happen. So it's just a matter of rechecking everything to make sure that everything is deployed as it's supposed to.
Which is, by the way, a super smart thing in the general in SharePoint, because SharePoint is never and never will be transactional. Like we know, it's basically anything could happen at the moment of applying, let's say, multiple set of API calls, and there could be a throttling, there could be a hiccup on the network, there could be whatever, and because it's not transactional, it's not going to fall back. So it's always good to have a let's say, fail-safe code when we're working with SharePoint. So, and I don't think that has changed since the server-side pages. So in a farm solution time, that was the same thing. You never knew. You unfortunately, am I saying this out loud? So don't quote me on. Oh, it's getting recorded.
Well, in farm solution time, with things that were applied. Period.
No. There was a moment, as an example, if you have a conflict of edits on an item, so you might have those where you actually read the item and immediately after you try to update, but there was a pessimistic. The concurrent checking or update checking, and because it's not a transactional thing, you actually crashed yourself.
Well, unless you would do like override the whole thing, the God mode,
Correct. So there was multiple ways of dealing that in farm solutions, and so, but that's behind of us, right? Nobody's doing, well, some people are doing farm solution. Then that's
well, you would be surprised. You would be surprised.
I know. It's fine. For on-premises, absolutely fine. Absolutely supported. But yeah, that's the downside of SharePoint, no doubt. Well, kind of the challenge of SharePoint always that it's not transactional. So we need to double check things. And that's also the PMP provisioning engine is super powerful, right? But it's still, there's so many operations happening there that if it suddenly gets throttled because of another tenant in the same farm, that provisioning might fail. And the most horrible things to investigate is those things which we can't make a repro.
Reproduce,
It happens every now and then. Well, if it happens every now and then, how would I verify that I'm fixing that? There's no way for fixing it.
Well, you run it now, and then you run it then, and then if it works.
Sure. Challenge of software development, right? The only way you can fix the issue is that you're able to repro the issue, and then you're able to confirm that the issue has been fixed. So.
But I guess being a manager, like we have the and I can say now openly, we have the luxury of saying like fix it. Like how hard can it be?
So now it all comes back to you. When you were a developer, you were getting a lot of those kind of requests.
Yes.
I don't get it. Just fix it.
Exactly. Like how hard can it be, right?
So. A bad joke. Back in 2002, we did a new HTML internet-facing web solution for one company I was working for at the time. Not going to mention the company name. And then we did a innovation on the next version. And then I went to present that to the leaderboard of the directors of the whole company. It was a relatively small company, like 2,500 employees. And then I go there and demonstrate that, and everybody's like, "That's super cool, that's awesome, and this is what we want to do." And then, okay, so what's the estimate? When do we actually get this ready and up and going? That it looks really okay. And it was obviously full of smoke and mirrors, so it was just to show a mock-up. And then it's like, well, we can have the bare minimal viable product in 3 months. And then the one guy in the boardroom says, "How hard can it be? Just last weekend, I was creating my boys' football club HTML pages, and it wasn't that hard." And it's like,
yes, because your application is your boys' football, your soccer team website.
Exactly.
Yes, it's the same thing, right? Whether it allows planes to fly or just show some stats from a game, like how hard can it be? It's all the same.
And what's the learning of this? We all have specialists. Let's trust those specialists. When they actually give you an estimate, or a developer gives you an estimate, it's probably because of a reason. And then you can ask, why does it actually take so long? But don't underestimate those people, right? Anything else?
And then nobody says anything. Like, right?
Right.
And everybody's like,
move on.
Yeah. Stop
Anything
digging.
else? Anything else we want to talk about?
From last week, that was all.
Okay, so on my side, on last Thursday, we announced that there will be 1.71 SPFX. So we've been kind of prepping that. It's a small bug fix release for SharePoint Framework, so nothing too dramatical, but there was a small bug in the dynamic data, which is already G8, and we wanted to address that. And I think the PNMP package manager issue is getting addressed there as well. So
Yarn, right? Yarn.
Yarn issue, yes. So it's just super small things which are not apparently impacting anything that widely the audience. Now, what else? I was just trying to write something down because I was doing quite a lot of stuff actually. I
was trying to write something down.
I don't know.
That sounds really cryptic.
Yes, exactly. So the provisioning service is something, the demo service for demo templates, which are coming from a SharePoint design team. We've been working on that one. That should go to beta in end of January. But that's only for those kind of a demo and pre-sales purposes. So basically, hey, here's a template to play around with. And those are controlled by our design team. What else? Telemetry stuff. We're working on an updated set of telemetry. What else? Plenty of other small things. But I can't remember what I'm doing. I have no idea what I did yesterday, so that's fine. It's still busy. Luckily, holiday break is coming, right?
Meaning more time for dev, right?
Yes. Actually, I'm there.
Everybody's like, yes.
I finally get to write some code, right? Let's actually have a look on a few items which were selected for a discussion on this week. So let's see. You need to confirm when you actually see the page.
I can see it.
Both got it?
Building modern collaboration portals in Python. Good stuff.
Okay. Waldek is saying something completely different than we are, so that's fine. Okay, so the first thing what I wanted to do, a few kind of out of, let's say, Microsoft blog posts. So first of all, on the SharePoint Dev blog posts, we have the site scripts and site design fall 2018 update, which came, I think we released this on Friday, wasn't it? I think it was Friday, yeah. Yep. And this is around the new site designs and site scripts capabilities. So nothing, let's say, how would I put it, groundbreaking, but cool stuff in some sense at least. So auto creation of site scripts, basically get SPO site script from a list command. And this is really for generating a list definition. What's the right term
instance,
for this?
List instance, list template, list instance template.
List script.
Okay. Maybe.
Definition of the list in the site script format from an existing list. So you basically get that one out, and then you're able to put it in your SPO site script. And obviously, this should not be confused with a PNP provisioning engine, because the PNP provisioning engine does support actually extracting individual lists as well for PNP templates, but it's much more, how would I put it, feature
powerful.
Ready. Right way of putting that. Because site scripts are still relatively limited from a capability and perspective. So creating a site script, and even though you would use all of the capabilities what we have in site scripts, I would estimate that's like 20% of the BMP provisioning template right now.
So seeing this, I want to ask two things. So first of all, so here we can see that we can extract a template from a list.
Yep.
Is it fair to expect that someone will be able to extract things from the site?
Potentially, yes. Now, when debatable, it really comes down on resources, and also do we want to even do that in a whole site level? Even with the SharePoint, so the PNP provisioning does support of extracting a site, existing site, which is super cool. But and let's talk about this one, what BindTuning is doing as well. But at least what we've seen is that actually, if you want to have a clean templates and clean provisioning, you actually want to extract one by one those elements which are interesting, and then you modify those XMLs, and then you package that as a template. Would that be a fair thing to say from a BindTuning perspective as well?
Exactly. So that's exactly how we work with the provisioning. So we save it to have a starting point, but then we work each individual component of the XML file that is generated. There are things that we remove because we don't want them when we create a new site. We had a couple other ones. We even add content to lists or to libraries. And obviously, we extend the template with our own things, with our own product things to create a site. That's how we work with the PNP provisioning engine.
Absolutely makes sense, and that's well, that's what I've seen quite often. That how people are, they're basically extracting to get the baseline and then modifications. And like you said, the PNP provisioning template, if you extract, it doesn't actually take content, which is a super important thing to realize. And that's by design. And we will never go to the content because the content is a can of worms. Immediately, if you start extracting content, you go to the level of content migration plus all of the different scenarios of is the item checked out, checked in, checked out, or is it confirmed, the versioning, all of those. There's a gajillion amount of small things which can go wrong. So we don't actually want to go there.
But on the other hand, from the provisioning point of view, we do include it.
So you can add content. You can add content as long as you add it manually. We do not extract content except from a welcome page on the PNP provisioning template.
Okay.
And that is because we don't want to touch it. It's an area which requires such a humongous amount of resources, and I don't think open source is ready for that. So people would like to have that kind of a capability. It's like, hey, I can take any site or any tenant, and I'll just extract the tenant and apply the tenant. But and that would kind of make sense, right? To have a native out-of-the-box capability in SharePoint like that. But the amount of resources to make that 100% bulletproof would be enormous.
Yeah. Yes. I understand your point, right? From the user point of view, well, so maybe the users are not the audience. Maybe the audience is devs or admins.
True.
And then basically because there is no export, they can achieve the same result. They just need to fill in the blanks by themselves.
Correct. And this is a good start for site designs. And anyway, if you think about the site designs and site scripts, it is absolutely an evolution, out-of-the-box server-side evolution of the PNP provisioning engine. Now, PNP provisioning engine has 300 individual contributors, and then people like BindTuning and companies like BindTuning are extending that using their own handlers and all of that add-on value on top of this open source provisioning thing. Now, site design site scripts is an out-of-the-box capability. There is no 300 developers who are actually implementing this.
But there's 80,000 employees in Microsoft, right, or more?
Yeah.
So
Yes, exactly.
Like and all of them don't know.
Yes. All of them are working on site designs and site scripts. Absolutely.
That's what I expected. Huh?
Yes. But yeah, one step at a time. I think we're heading to the right direction, but it's one step at a time story. And sure, site design site scripts is a good functionality. It's faster than the PNP provisioning because site design site scripts happens on server side. PNP provisioning happens remotely through remote APIs. So it's a completely different approach. Now, anyway, moving on things. Large site script support. So it can have large scripts of up to 100 characters, 100,000 characters, not 100.
Wow.
Quite a lot of big difference.
There's a lot of characters.
Yeah. New site designs information panel. This is kind of cool. So you're able to actually have a look on what were the scripts which have been applied to the site. So you can actually go and see afterwards what were the site designs which have been applied, what were the actions which were applied as part of that site design. So you're able to then have a look on a historical things, what has happened. And obviously this is because of the apply or the actions and operations are stored in a site level. So there's a hidden lists behind of the scenes which are storing what has actually been done.
Regarding the big scripts, is that based on something or a trend that you guys already see, that people are going into that direction and creating that big scripts, or the design? Scripts.
I think we were getting a lot of questions related on site designs and site scripts around the actions. I think we had a safe limit of 50 actions per site script or something like that. We set it at some point, and that was mainly for safety reasons. We didn't want to, we didn't know where the limits are, so we said, let's come up with something, some recommendation. Let's say.
And then somebody created something, and you're like, okay, we need to support more.
Yeah. But that's how it works. We need to start with small. It's baby steps, then crawling, then walking, then running, and then massive. So it's just a matter of not actually first saying gajillion amount of whatever, and let's try with something and then scroll from there.
Cool.
Easier that.
Yeah.
Good. Another kind of out-of-the-box thing which I wanted to mention is, by the way, just to explain, this is in the SharePoint Dev blog. So we do have a separate SharePoint Dev blog, which is in here, Office Dev Center. And then we actually have a separate Microsoft SharePoint blog, which is around experiences and IT Pro and all of that stuff. There is two different themes behind of these things, kind of. Except that I actually touch base on both, but that's a different discussion. But what was here new from Chris McNulty is the no-code solution from custom formatting in SharePoint. And this was really cool functionality related on the column formatting and view formatting functionalities, but this kind of evolving on the same capability. So if you create a column formatting or a view formatting definitions, they are all basically JSON definitions. So let me actually show this. This is a location where we have out-of-the-box JSON definitions. We need to fix that. No, not like that. View samples, if you go here, here's a JSON file, which is actually, well, that's a super simple JSON file. Let me actually go to a slightly more complicated JSON file.
They are really simple.
Come on.
It's just that's simple, right?
It is, well, that's okay. Slightly more complicated JSON file. So these are JSON files. And this particular JSON file, as an example, defines this kind of a look and feel for a contact list, which is kind of cool. But if you are you're not a developer, you are, what are you? What are these people? What do we call these people?
IT Pro, makers, power users, citizen developers.
Citizen developers, yes. Apparently that's the hip term to call this. But
no, it's not.
Fine.
It's been around for years.
Sure. If you think about the information workers who are actually asked to do this.
That's hip.
Yes. Well, that's an old school name.
Yeah.
If you think about those people, they do not necessarily understand JSON. So they are having a hard time of defining these rules, which is completely understandable. This is quite complex JSON definition. The first question everybody would probably have is that, what is JSON? Which is a fair question. We know what is JSON because we are ex-developers, at least, if nothing else, even though we wouldn't be doing development anymore. But now this one is the next, let's say, step forward on the fact that you do not necessarily need to have a knowledge of JSON. So we're one step at a time adding new capabilities of doing this formatting. And this is a walkthrough of the demo. So I'm clicking the events. I'm clicking the field, which I'm going to modify. Notice no formatting on this field at all. I'm actually doing format this column. And then it's actually giving me a selection template. So field background color based on a template. And I can actually say that if the event type equals nightlife, what is the color? If it's equals art food, what is the color? And I can basically then colorize. Is that the right way to do that?
Yeah.
And clicking apply, and there we go. Now we basically have defined the rendering of the column differently.
So will this be available to third parties to create like kind of extensible or customizable templates?
So that's a fair point. So if we actually get back on the, how do I reset this demo? So let me do this.
Reload.
That's actually a good question. So could we actually have additional of these templates available?
Yeah.
Right now, what happens on the background is that we are actually creating a column formatting definition, so a JSON definition for the item. These templates here, that's a great input. I will talk to Cyrus and the people around the fact that how would you be able to add additional of these templates in. That's great input. I do not know where this template is actually being stored right now. So that's interesting. What if there was a template store and we would never?
Yes.
That's actually a good idea.
Exactly. One step at a time. So I think having the endpoint.
66% of users demand. We ran a survey.
Yes, based on the study.
Let me pull down my shades because the yellow bright thing came out.
Yeah, we don't have that problem here. So I think the yellow card thing will be back in February or March. So
Way better.
how's the weather, by the way, in Lisbon? Are you in Lisbon, by the way?
No, we are in Vila do Conde. It's really close to Porto.
Okay, so South Portugal. Okay, Portugal. Cool. How's the weather there?
It's really cool today. Still sunny. It's really cool.
How's the temperature, just out of curiosity?
Let me check on that.
Weather. What is the weather in Porto?
14 degrees right now.
Okay, that's not too bad. So let's see if I can
cool.
actually do this. So obviously we have plenty of snow in here. So you can, well, it's a super small picture and because we're sharing screen, but we have plenty of snow in here. So luckily, so it will be white holiday season, which is good. Now let's get back on the things. Now, other topics. So Mark D. Anderson had a really interesting article last week about using PnP.js as an async way to really simplify our API call. So Mark D. Anderson is a, how would I put it, old school client-side developer. He had the SP services, which is a relatively old JavaScript. Don't be like that, Waldek.
He's not old school. He's been around for a while. What? But he's now talking about the cutting edge PnP.js async and await. That's not old school.
Sure. No, that's, you didn't talk until I jumped in. So Mark D. Anderson has been in SharePoint for years, and he implemented, for example, the SharePoint services JavaScript wrapper on top of the ASMX files, ASMX remote APIs, which was super cool and widely used. Now, Mark has people like Julie. Julie was visitor last week, right? That was last week.
Correct.
Yep. Is working on the same company as Mark D. Anderson. And basically, this is a nice article of explaining what if you use the PnP.js, which is no doubt the top end what is it? What's the right term?
Cutting edge.
Cutting edge technology to simplify the remote API calls. So here's a example of a data call without PnP.js and with SP PnP.js. So getting the site data in here or async getting the site data, not a massive differences, but there's a clear difference on the executing the search query. But if you go down here on getting the list data, the difference is much more visible. So that's the old school way, so to say, to get to the response station and then get the information from here. But that's the PnP.js way of doing that. So PnP.js, absolutely great thing. We've been building that, or Patrick has been building that now for almost 2 years. Yes, 2 years. Because that was the beauty of the PnP.js. So not that many people actually remember this, but we started the PnP.js community actually 2.5 years. Yeah, almost 3 years. We started the PnP.js
in March,
story,
right?
In March, before SharePoint Framework was announced, because we knew SharePoint Framework will be announced. So we started a community calls and special interest group call around the JavaScript development and using the industry standard ways of doing stuff. And it was actually kind of a funny reaction that on March we started, and then on May, when we announced SharePoint Framework, a lot of people were like, well, now it makes perfect sense why you started explaining that this is the right
That's coincidence.
Yes, exactly.
No, it's not.
But yeah, so PnP.js simplifies the REST calls, and basically you can see here sp.web.lists, and then which list by a title, and we're getting items, and those items ordered by that one. So it's much more understandable than hitting the REST, just the REST APIs, and it really simplifies the code. Readability is higher and understandable. Now, on BindTuning, are you guys using PnP.js?
Yes, we started recently, 3 or 4 months ago, but we are using it a lot now. It really simplifies the way code is written and the way we can read the code.
Yeah. And I can imagine that the discussion was exactly the same as with Mark, because we've been having this discussion with Mark at some point, which is like, but why would I use the PnP.js? Because I can do everything using REST. But then when you start using the PnP.js, it's like, oh, this actually does simplifies what I'm doing. Even though it feels like, how can you make REST more simplified? But actually, you can. So Patrick has been doing an awesome job, absolutely awesome job, together with the community contribution. So Andrew Coppola, Andrew there, and the other people who've been contributing as well. So anyway, moving on things, how to create an SPFX project using specific version from Stefan Bauer. I wasn't aware of this, so this was really cool finding. I think not that many people were aware of NPX. And what it actually provides is that you're able to run, for example, the Yeoman generator on a specific version. Let me zoom in. Even though you don't have the 1.4.1 installed globally on the machine. So basically, how would you explain this? It's kind of a remotely, virtually.
So what it does? No. It's what it does is that it downloads the package, executes it, deletes it.
Yeah.
So locally, all of that is being done transparently.
Yep. Makes sense.
So it's like for things like ACLI or something or a tool you want to use, and you don't want to have it installed, which you just need to use run or to run once, you just run npx, which would be the same equivalent as like npm install global the thing, run the thing, delete it. Yeah. So you can do all of that in npx.
Does it install that in globally or locally? I think it's locally actually.
Well, it doesn't really install anything, to be honest. So it's it's like
sure. It's isolated on the in the pros. Okay, never mind. Fair point.
Pulls down the package, executes it, and it's gone.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. And then it gives you the capability of, even though you haven't globally installed 1.4.1 or whatever version, you're able to run the Yeoman generator for that specific version. Why would you do this? Why is this important? Why would you go back in time to a older version?
Because you have a project that you created 2 years back, and you need to add a web part to it, and you don't want to upgrade it.
Kind of a leading question. So
yeah, I know. It's like yeah. Basically that. I mean, when you have a project that you have been working on for a while now, and you just need to add a web part, you're not going to upgrade it now because you might not have the time and bandwidth. And there might be quite a few things that would be affected by it because there is new version of Node, new version of NPM, new version of TypeScript, new version of typings, new version of everything. Well, all you need to do is just add a web part.
Yep. Absolutely makes sense. Makes sense. And like noted, the following, just to conclude that one. So we do still support SharePoint Framework 1.0 in SharePoint Online, which is one of the promises what we're providing with SharePoint Framework. So if somebody develops an older version, then we do not break you, which by the way is also causing us a headache on the SharePoint Online side, but that's the only way we can guarantee that this is enterprise ready. So enterprises do not have to upgrade everything to the latest version immediately when there's a new version available. So it's not a massive deal for developers, but if an enterprise buys a solution from somebody outsourced consultant, they will need to guarantee that it's working still in the years to come. So understandable. Cool. The other thing from Stefan, kind of related on this one, how to use specific Node.js version with your SPFX project. How would you characterize then this one? So we basically use an NPX, and then we are running Node 6 and installing the 1.2 version, even though you're running a Node 8, for example, locally, right?
Exactly right. So that is the whole point, right? As you go back in time, right?
So Node 6 and 1.2 was supporting only Node 6, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like if you look all the way back from it, like the way you read it is like on Node 6, run yo, in which you run generator to execute command yo.
Yeah.
So it was like all the -p are parameters of basically what you want to run on what.
But this then means that you don't have to use Docker or other isolation on these things like NVM or...
Well, for this particular command, you don't. But then when you think about it, what you can do in Docker is Docker is in a way a VM.
Yep.
So it allows you to pre-package like all kinds of different libraries and tools together and exchange that across the whole team. Like with this, you still have to keep in mind, okay, so I need to run something on 1.2. Wait a minute, which version of Node do I need? Which version of that do I need? Which version of PNP do I need for that? So you have to keep all these versions, dependencies somewhere.
Yep.
Whereas in Docker, you can pre-create them inside an image, and that will just work.
Yeah. So what about in BindTuning? Now that we have somebody who's actually working on these things on day-to-day basis rather than being a PM, right, Waldek?
He is a PM, but he just said that he's a manager.
Team lead.
Exactly.
No,
team lead.
Yes. No, we try to move on all the projects to the version that we are working with. So we try to not leave specific projects on older versions, which simplifies a lot our life in terms of managing different versions of the framework. But when it's needed, what we do is we create VMs with the specific version of the framework, but are for temporary things. Typically, we keep all the projects running the same version of the framework.
Yep.
And how you guys go around the upgrade? How do you bring the project up from one version to another?
We have to test it.
Okay, but then how do you know what to change to upgrade it?
We upgrade it, we test it, and if something breaks, then fix it. That's
okay.
Yeah, you're trying to promote again the CLI, right?
No, I'm just investigating how people.
I'm aware of it, but we never used it to do the upgrades. But it's a possible solution.
Cool. I'm just conscious about the time again. So let's actually, there's 3 more to go, and then we can close up the discussion. So this one was good from Anup. We talked about this one, I think, already in the past, if I remember correctly.
Talked about him, not about this one, this article.
That's true. That is true. And Anup did a live demo on this one in the SharePoint Framework community call as well, just showing how things are working. So this is relatively... Waldek is always laughing with this one. Why would you put this one in your intranet? But hey, it's a holiday season, holiday spirit. And this one includes 3 different, let's say, GIF animations, and you're able to control themes. You're able to basically deploy the stuff using the tenant-wide deployment of extension capability, and then you're able to just say, hey, festival name equals Christmas, and that will then mean that every single installation, every single site within your tenant will have the GIF animations running there. So I don't know if I want to do that, but hey, why not? If somebody wants to do that, it's an easy and nice way of doing that. And to be fair, I think this is a great demo of the tenant-wide deployment of extensions anyway. So having the capability of pushing stuff across the tenant is super, super powerful thing. So super great stuff. Good. Then a quick one from here I'm just going to double check that I'm actually getting the name right. So let me do this. Sander. Okay. So this is around Connect Azure AD Secure Signal R Hub from your SPFX code. So basically, this is a story around the fact that you want to connect and service with the security using the Azure AD from your SPFX side, and basically walking through the registration of Azure AD, enabling authentication in a Signal R Hub, and then creating the needed SPFX setup, or using that's actually the implementation of the web API, so ASP.NET Core. Then we have the web part where we're asking the right permissions, and then basically running the code in the right permission way. So we're using the Azure AD token provider factory of getting the access token. And to be able to get the access token, we also need to approve the permissions using the central admin capability. But it's a nice explanation on the steps on how do you call a secure API in the Azure AD from SPFX. And I'm 100% sure this is the future of SharePoint Framework. So putting the business logic on the Azure and then executing stuff securely from SPFX, Azure Function or whatever the business logic is being hosted. So cool stuff. And the final piece from Andrew Conal. This was just released after last week's recording. So enable chest testing on SharePoint Framework projects in one simple step. So basically what AC has done is a package which will simplify using the chest framework unit testing within your solutions. And you should be checking it out if you're using Jest for unit testing, and how does it actually simplify things. So. And he's absolutely looking into feedback. Are you on BindTuning side, are you using some sort of a test framework for things, or?
We have a team that does all the testing, but I don't know the full details on that.
Yeah, as long as there's no surprising bugs, right? Everything's fine. As long as it works, come on. Cool. Good. We run slightly long again, but it's fine. We're always chit-chatting slightly too long. Any last words? Holiday season is coming, so this we'll probably do a Christmas special recording with Waldek on Friday this week, just for having something on the middle of next week. And holiday season is coming in the certain areas of the world. There will be a vacations on next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right?
The whole week.
Yeah. Well, yeah, slightly depends. You're away for the whole week?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Oh, cool. I will be back on next Thursday. Well, anyway, so any time off? Yep.
I will be back on work on Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just the Christmas break.
Yeah. Perfect. Makes perfect sense. Any last words? Cool. Anything? What are we waiting for? Any good Christmas gifts ideas? Anything what we can say? This is a family program. No, just kidding.
I want, for SharePoint, I want extensions that I can enable to specific hubs. That's a thing that I want for Christmas.
Now you need to elaborate on that. What does it mean?
So you have global deployment of extensions across the entire tenant. But what if I want to apply the extension just to the sites that belong to the hub?
Oh, to a hub deployment.
Yeah, hub specific. Yeah. Well, you won't have it on by Christmas, that's for sure. But but I do understand. Yeah, we've been having that discussion. With,
you will have it by Christmas, just not which year.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
True. That's
all right.
Sorry.
I think we can make that happen in the future, because the role of hub sites is absolutely growing. Now it's just a matter of, again, prioritizing the task and then having a separate. Because the hub site is technically an existing site collection which has been marked to be a hub. So that means that the hub site can actually have a site collection app catalog already. But then we need to create a hub app catalog, which will have to be then a separate app catalog, which could be on the side of site collection app catalog on the hub site, right?
But
so
I mean, almost
the complexity of that. But I think, this should be doable.
Well, but why not use the global app catalog and then have like hub activation list, basically the same way we have the global tenant activation list? The same thing?
Yeah. Or if the site collection is a hub, then the site collection app catalog should be considered as a hub site catalog.
Yeah, but then you have the problem, like, how do you move bits? How do you, like, all kinds of jazz? Like, how does that become available across sites? And there are things available versus not, so...
So okay, this is actually because I'm a feature PM on the tenant scope.
So you want us to help us spec?
Yeah, exactly. And we're getting stuck on this, but that's good. So, but having a if it would be based on a GUID of the hub site, that's probably acceptable. In the tenant-wide deployment of extension list, we would be defining then GUIDs. The only downside of that one is that if you add a new hub, you would have to add that hub then in there, but it's not like hubs are being like.
But I mean, in a hub, so you could even envision it that maybe one day in the future, when you create a hub, there is the site design with a site script to activate an extension on that hub, and then.
True.
Or it can call into a flow that does that already today using our technology that we have already at our disposal.
Yeah, I think we can make this happen relatively fast. So not a
so 3 days.
Yeah. Right now we're already in the freeze period in SharePoint Online, so we're not shipping.
It is cold. It is cold, so freeze makes sense.
Yes. It's good ask. Any ask from you, Waldek?
Not really. It's like typically, it's like you get to the point where if you want something, you get it, and there are some things that you can't get in, like Docker for SPFX, no. But I guess no. There's nothing like on top of my list like, oh, how cool would it be to have? No.
Well, I think to be fair, I think we need to follow up on the Docker discussion, and it's not definitely intentional that if it has a problems, that it should have a problems. It's just a matter of making sure that we
Exactly.
and engineers in who are responsible of this, which would be Graham, who probably is never going to watch this, so I can actually name him out loud. And we just need to make sure that we actually test that it's working in Docker properly without any issues. So that's just a matter of verification. If we can figure out what is causing the issue, hey, let's fix that. It's
probably something. So something's changed around 1.6, and it's probably something like downstream dependency.
Yeah,
doing some stuff, but yeah.
We'll figure it out.
And you?
Cool. Any more time would be brilliant.
You must have it next.
Yes. There's so much to do. But yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping for world peace and whatever. So it doesn't matter.
Somehow I expected that, but
yes. Cool. I think that's it for this one. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll come up with a Christmas special next on next week when Waldek is away. I will push it out probably on Wednesday right after Christmas. But thank you for joining us as a visitor, and I can pronounce the name properly again.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. There you go.
Ciao. Ciao.
It's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Ciao, for joining us. We will definitely. Yes. Well, definitely, we will take the video for the pronunciation guidance for the next blog post which you're releasing, so we get it right on the wording. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your time. Sorry for taking a few minutes extra on your schedule, but have a great holiday break for both of you, and we'll be absolutely in touch. Bye-bye, everybody watching.
Bye.
Thank you.